According to a report by McKinsey, over 70% of banking activities could be automated by 2030. Digital disruption is rapidly transforming the BFSI sector, reshaping how businesses operate and compete. To succeed in this rapidly evolving landscape, BFSI companies must upskill their workforce to harness these technologies effectively. This shift isn't just about technology adoption. It's about transforming organizational culture, processes, and strategies to foster innovation, improve efficiency, and deliver greater value to customers. Developing a practical upskilling roadmap ensures that BFSI companies can navigate this disruptive landscape confidently, turning challenges into opportunities for growth and differentiation. Welcome to the BFSI Learning Week by KNOLSKAPE, and today we have a keynote address on navigating the digital disruption, practical upskilling roadmap for BFSI companies by a visionary HR leader with over 2 decades of rich experience in the BFSI domain. His expertise lies in crafting relevant L&D strategies to cater to strategic and agile needs. Working with CXOs and senior leadership in organizations, he has spearheaded some niche learning and development initiatives that deliver tangible business and people outcomes at scale. An OD and change management leader, he's also very passionate about data science and digital space. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Rutindersingh Negi, Senior Head, Human Resources with Bajaj Finance Ltd. Rutinder, the floor and the podium is all yours.
Megdo, thank you so much. I hope I'm able to do justice to the wonderful introduction that you have made for me. I'm just going to take a moment and share my screen. Just let me know when my presentation is visible.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay, wonderful. All good. You can hear me clearly?
Yes, Rutinder.
All right, thank you. So welcome everyone. I would just like to start with a quick disclaimer. I'm not an expert, just a passionate learner and an early adopter. And that's essentially, the way I'll go through with my presentation and my keynote address today. It's important to understand why does it matter. This entire navigating the digital disruption, Meghdoo spoke about, has become scorching. It's not just gone up, but it's extremely scorching. Consider this: 10 billion UPI transactions in a month, in one of the months in 2024. What this is pushing financial institutions to do is to modernize legacy systems and move to API first architectures. In the age of AI, the most valuable skill is the ability to learn, unlearn, and relearn. Why does this matter now? BFSI is becoming the third largest contributor to India's economy. And there are 2 or 3 aspects which are becoming quite significant. The first one is hyper-personalized financial products. The second is AI-driven underwriting and fraud detection. And the third is intelligent chatbots and virtual assistants. I'm sure a lot of us would have spoken to bots as well. And it is becoming increasingly difficult now to be able to gauge whether one is speaking to a chatbot or a virtual assistant or not. A lot of platforms, even on the learning side, have now integrated virtual assistants, coaching bots, etc. on their platforms to make learning easier as well. Now, it's very important to understand what is the nature of this digital disruption in BFSI. So to help understand this better, let me give you an example from one of the companies in the Indian BFSI space. This is a statement of purpose of what this organization wants to do and achieve over the next 3 to 5 years. By the way, this information is available in the public domain. See if you can challenge yourself to guess the name of this organization as I speak about it. So this organization's FinAI strategic vision reads something like this. They want to redefine financial services by embedding AI and Gen AI across all business functions. Deliver hyper personalized, efficient, and scalable financial services while reducing costs and enhancing productivity. Their technology integration talks about over 300 Gen AI projects live across lending, customer service, fraud detection, and more. Further, their voice enabled Gen AI sales tool is already selling close to about 10,000 loans per month. And their partnerships include some of the best, along with some of the best of the world, with Microsoft, Google, and Anthropic. The operational impact that this organization is targeting is 150 crores in annual saving by FY26 through Gen AI efficiencies, AI driven personalization, faster onboarding, and intelligent servicing. They also have a vision on the upskilling the workforce. So their vision on that side is they want to upskill the workforce for AI fluency, cultural transformation, encouraging experimentation, continuous learning, and digital fluency. And we'll talk a bit more about these words as we go along: AI fluency and digital fluency. Their emphasis is on responsible innovation, balancing risk, compliance, and customer trust. And by the way, this organization is not the only one. You have traditional banks partnering with fintechs. A large bank in India recently has created an API banking platform to enable fintechs to plug into its services seamlessly. So when I say the pace of, the disruption is scorching, I'm sure you would be able to realize through this example of what seems to be happening. Don't know whether you've been able to guess the name of this organization, but this organization is Bajaj Finance Ltd. Now, after listening to the mission outlined above, one can imagine the impact on workforce and skills that would be required. I was recently perusing a Harvard Business Publishing report from 2024, and one of the insights that it shared was 40% of BFSI roles will be redefined by 2030. What this report further shares is that the shift will be from transactional to analytical and advisory roles. It further goes on to say that demand for hybrid skills, which is tech plus human. For example, how do you build empathy along with data literacy, is going to be a core focus area. You know, when you look at this entire way the shift is happening, you also need to look at a four-part frame. One, which is for the creators, the people or the employees who work on coding, building, and integrating AI and generative AI along with the organization's infrastructure. The second would be influencers and intermediaries. Now, the influencers and intermediaries essentially would be people like business heads, business owners, people like you and me on the HR side. How are we able to influence? How are we able to become intermediaries in this entire ecosystem? The third part would be the users, the people on the ground who are finally going to be using this entire technology. And the fourth would be the end beneficiaries. These beneficiaries could include customers, employees, anyone who benefits from using this entire technology. Now, before we move on to the next section, here's a quick poll that I would like you to please answer. I'm going to request the team to please put up the poll question.
We have the poll up, Rutindersingh.
Okay, so you can see, I'm assuming you can see the results on your screen. 26% of you have said that identifying future relevant skills is one of your biggest challenges today. 26% have said engaging employees in learning is your biggest challenge. 26% of you have said that measuring learning impact is one of your biggest upskilling challenges today. 11% say that aligning L&D with business goals. I'm happy to see that this is a lower percentage. And 11% say budget and resource constraints. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think we'll talk a bit about, uh, identifying future skill sets as well as we move along in the presentation. I'm just going to go back to my presentation. I hope you can see my screen now once again.
Yes, Rutindersingh.
All right. Thank you. Now, I'm going to spend a few minutes, talking about the skills gap. And then we'll talk about the mindset shift in HR. Now, a recent World Economic Forum study last year, 2024, said that 50% of employees will need reskilling by 2025. Some BFSI specific gaps include cybersecurity, data analytics, digital sales, compliance tech, and others. One of the most valuable skills, however, would be the ability to collaborate effectively with AI. And if you go back to my earlier part where I was talking about this organization, Bajaj Finance, which is talking about AI fluency. So the ability to collaborate effectively with AI is also known as AI fluency or human AI collaboration. This is a very, very critical aspect, very critical for all the employees, but even much more so for HR professionals such as ourselves. Supporting skills that complement AI fluency are also critical. Some of these would include hyper personalized designs. I was talking about, we want to be hyper personalized. So, hyper personalized design. How does one go ahead and become creative in adapting uh, AI personalized journeys, whether it is across the customer space or whether it is across the employee space? The other one is data literacy. How does one go ahead and interpret analytics and AI generated insights? There's a lot of information there, but it is critical for us to be able to build skills on interpreting analytics and the AI generated insights. One of the large ones which are fundamentally important in this environment is that of leading cultural shifts towards AI adoption. Now, change management hence becomes a key mantra for all HR professionals as we move along in this entire journey of AI and digital disruption. The next one would be ethical AI awareness. I'm sure a lot of us have heard about the constraints that AI also has. How do we ensure responsible? responsible and inclusive use of Gen AI. Now, whenever one goes and uses an open source platform and one puts in organization data over there, it's available for the entire world to see. So how can one go ahead and ensure responsible and inclusive use of Gen AI in organization practices? A lot of FinAI organizations or providers of generative AI are actually creating sandboxes which are available for organizations to use. The last one, which is also a very, very critical part or supporting skill that complements AI fluency, would be agility and innovative mindset. How does one rapidly experiment with the scaling of new AI tools? Now, you know what, I've been trying to dabble in some of these tools which are available. The other day, I was speaking to my brother. My brother is a sound engineer, and he's into recording music. And he learned this skill somewhere in the year 2002 or 2003. Recently, when I was speaking to him, he tells me that he's been using a couple of platforms like HeyGen and 11 Labs, and he's been utilizing these to generate completely AI based videos, AI music. So he writes the lyrics, and the AI is able to make a composition. He's able to build a video along with this. So these are some examples of agility and innovation mindset which are required. He's been rapidly experimenting on this side to see how he can use these AI tools to scale his own business. Now, let's talk a bit about what are some of the mindset shifts that we in HR are very critical for us, for all of us in HR. There are certain questions that we should ponder on. If AI fluency is so important, then how can we develop AI fluency to understand the use cases of AI across the employee life cycle? Now, I've been reading quite a few insights, and if you go to ChatGPT or if you go to Copilot and you put in which are some of the organizations in India which are utilizing AI on the HR side, you will find at least 20 to 30 examples of organizations which have already started using AI in hiring, in interviewing, in onboarding, in developing, and in managing the workforce across the employee lifecycle. The second question to ponder on for each one of us would be, how do we shift from a one size fits all to becoming hyper personalized? Now, I've been struggling with this entire conundrum of n is equal to 1, which is every employee is unique or every customer is unique. How do we go ahead and craft specific, on demand, and unique learning journeys for employees so that they can utilize when they want, how they want, where they want, and how much they want? A question for learning professionals to ponder on would be, how do we, utilize multiple channels? And most of the organizations today, if you see, would be operating in all of these spaces. You would have physical classrooms, you would have learning management systems, you would have Teams, Zoom, or any one of these virtual instructor led platforms that one would be using. And the last one would be social engagement. Now, how does one, seamlessly utilize all of these multiple channels together so as to be able to hyper personalize the journey and to be able to provide on demand learning to employees? Over and above this, another question would be, how would one be able to utilize the various formats seamlessly? There's a very interesting shift that is happening. We've been using videos, we've been using images, But an interesting shift that has been happening now is voice. More and more so, a lot of the younger generation is so comfortable just listening to something rather than reading it or watching it on a video. So how do we go ahead and utilize this ecosystem seamlessly across the formats of video, image, voice? And the last one, which is critical for us in India, which has what, close to about 40 plus gazetted languages, is vernacular. Because generative AI also gives you the opportunity of becoming extremely strong on the vernacular side. You've got an employee who's sitting in Gujarat. How are you able to provide an on-demand learning for him or her in Gujarati? Or for that matter, you have an employee sitting out of Telangana or Andhra Pradesh. How are you able to go ahead and provide specific learning for that person in Telugu? These are all within our reach now. Let me spend some time now moving into my next section and talking about some of the strategic skills mapping. Now, you know, in the poll, a lot of you answered that aligning with business goals is not a key challenge, because strategic skills mapping, first and foremost, talks about how are we able to align our learning strategy or our human resource strategy, digital lending, or AI driven underwriting. How am I able to deliver value to the organization by ensuring that my employee set, which I have, is ready, has the requisite skills, and is able to, go ahead and take benefit of this entire immense investment which has been happening on the generative AI side. Second is learning experience design. A lot of you said that one of your key challenges is a skills framework. One of the skills framework that I have been utilizing is a skills framework called SFIA. This stands for Skills Framework for the Information Age. In this framework, each skill is mapped across 7 levels, from entry level to strategic leadership. It has close to about 147 plus defined competencies such as cybersecurity, data analytics, AI, and project management. It is increasingly helping benchmark AI readiness and supporting skills-based transformation. In fact, a lot of governmental agencies, big corporates are utilizing this particular skills framework to define and create a skills framework for their own organization, which can help them to support their skills-based transformation. I spoke earlier about change management and the culture of continuous learning, which is one of the critical aspects. How do we lead this cultural shift towards AI adoption? Now, it is critically important for us to see how are we able to use the AI-driven platforms for adaptive learning. How are we able to create learning champions? How are we able to utilize and leverage peer learning? How are we able to leverage reverse mentoring? In fact, an employee will always turn back and ask, what's in it for me? While the value proposition for the organization seems to be pretty clear, that if I invest X dollars into, generative AI capabilities, here is the Y dollar return that I'm going to get through efficiencies to improvement in productivity. But what's in it for the employee? How does one look at incentivizing learning through career mobility. And these are some aspects of how one can help build a culture of continuous learning. I would like to share an example, which is a personal example uh, from my, from my world, from my role. When Bajaj Finance was embarking on this entire journey of becoming the first FinAI organization of the world, one of the challenges in front of us was, how do we help employees learn prompt engineering? Now, it may seem that prompt engineering does not seem to be so complex to learn, but you will be surprised when you start getting into it. The quality of the prompt that you are able to give leads to the quality of the output that one is able to get out of it. So we launched a huge prompt engineering program across for our employees. And we launched it for creators, the people who are actually coding, building, and integrating these frameworks. We launched it for our influencers and intermediaries. We launched it for our users. We have not been able to, of course, launch it for our beneficiaries or our customers yet. The next step would be to measure what matters. And 26% of you said that measurement of ROI is a critical, it's the final piece. How am I able to measure what is the outcome or the value that I have been able to generate for the organization? Some of the things which come to mind while one talks about measuring what matters is, one, how is one able to bring about learning analytics? There's a lot of data flowing through HRMS systems today, through learning management systems today. A lot of organizations, if you were to, Google it or go to ChatGPT and ask a question, will tell you that a lot of organizations have very strong data lakes and data architecture, where a lot of data seems to be flowing in. However, what does not seem to be happening is the analytics of this entire humongous data that seems to be flowing in. Now, data flowing in is both structured and unstructured. How is one able to go ahead and utilize this entire data that is flowing into your data lakes to be able to really bring out the right kind of learning analytics, right kind of insights for employees? Let me give you a use case. One of the use cases could be well-being, and well-being today is talked about across organizations and across the corporate space, not only globally but also in India a lot. A lot of employees, if they are willing to share consent for their health data to flow to the organization, the organization can actually go ahead and give analytics to people to say how they can improve their own health, and in this journey how can they go ahead and become healthy individuals, which helps their own personal agenda. At the same time, how can they become more productive for the organization as well? The second is, measuring what matters is engagement. How is one able to measure through generative AI what is the pulse of the organization? Now, a lot of organizations invest a lot of time and resources in understanding the pulse of the employees. And employees sit across the last mile, across geographies, all across India. How is one able to go ahead and leverage generative AI to measure the pulse and the engagement level of employees? The third is, utilizing generative AI. How is one able to show a business impact to the organization to say, you know what, here is the dollar term that we invested in generative AI in through our learning platforms. Here is the money that we invested, and here is the business impact that one has been able to deliver through it. Because that's what makes the story stronger, and organizations would tend to then be more interested in sponsoring more of these initiatives. I was recently reading about one of the large Indian banks which is currently investing in AI powered learning platforms to reskill employees. This bank's partnership with Microsoft is enabling personalized learning journeys for 100,000 plus employees. Now, this is a clear case of a success story that seems to be coming out in our own ecosystem. I spoke about prompt engineering as a skill and the investment in AI tools for learning and development. I also want to spend a minute talking about the investment uh, in AI tools for learning and development. A lot of organizations today on the learning side have started utilizing AI tools to build videos, to build instant content. Just by writing a prompt, you are able to go ahead and get a great video. The output is significantly good and qualitative. It is instant, and you can go ahead and leverage your learning management systems or your social platforms, etc., to go ahead and disseminate this content to all employees across. It has become so easy to do that now. There are tools which are available through which one can go ahead. We've been utilizing a couple of such tools as well, which are helping us to create, voice-based learning modules for employees. You write a prompt, you are able to give the AI a context. Slowly and steadily, you will have to train the AI. You will have to put in a lot of data, and the output will be you'll get very good podcasts or learning sound bites that you can go ahead and leverage and disseminate across your employee workforce. These are a couple of examples. There are many such examples across India and across the world. One such global example is that of DBS Bank Singapore. Their Gandalf transformation journey. There are case studies which have been written about that. The kind of resources, time, and effort that this legacy bank put into really transforming and turning around the entire bank to become a digital first organization. The biggest impact for this bank was it used to be 10 years before, it used to be seen as having very low scores on the customer service side. Over the last 2 to 3 years, it is one of the leading banks across Asia. Now, I don't know whether to call this a closing or the beginning, but I just want to leave us with a couple of questions to ponder on. How can we be architects of transformation and not just facilitators of training? Recently, one of my team colleagues comes up to me and says, you know what, I've been experimenting a lot with some of these. I've been experimenting on Copilot. And what I did was that I gave it a lot of data in our sandbox of the learning programs that we have for a particular business. And after that, I said, here is my problem statement. And here is a learning program that I would like to build for our employees, basis this problem statement, to solve this problem statement. And I asked the generative AI to give me a high level design for the content that I wanted to create. And within 2 minutes, the platform was able to design. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that utilizing such platforms and this technology can give us the opportunity to actually augment our learning side. It frees up the time for the team. If AI is able to generate a high quality, high level design, which means half of my work is done, I can utilize the time that I have saved for higher strategic order and different kind of work. The second question that I would like to leave for each one of us to ponder on is, how do we adopt early and become champions of this coming wave? And it is a huge wave. Um, I personally, I have drawn a lot of insight from this book called The Coming Wave, which has been written by Mustafa Suleiman. And the question that I've been asking myself is, how do I adopt early? How do I become a champion for this entire coming wave? And so, with this, I would like to end my session. Thank you for listening to me. I'm going to now go back and hand it over to Meghdut. Meghdut, over to you.
Thank you so much, Rutinder. I'm sure that thank you. This session was very, very, I would say, meaningful and enlightening for us, both in terms of some of the use cases that you shared and some of the examples that you've been able to drive at Bajaj Finance Limited, and pleasantly surprised with that quick introduction that you began the piece with in terms of the achievements that Bajaj Finance have been able to drive. So congratulations on that one. We have a few questions from the panel, Rupinder, and I'd like to start. So the first question talks about, we spoke about, we keep speaking about impact evaluation and ROI. There is a shift being acknowledged from check in the box training to purposeful solutions to solve business problems. But still there's a lot of work to be done here in this aspect. So how do we ensure that we are able to, as leaders, how do we move from ensuring that our learning interventions or our learning initiatives are able to align with business metrics and ROI? So as leaders, as custodians of this particular engagement, how do we drive that within our organizations?
Okay. So if I understand your question correctly, what I hear is, how am I able to align to business priorities? And the second part of the question seems to be, how does one go ahead and show the ROI related to learning interventions to get continuous sponsorship through organizations? Do I understand the two parts of the question?
Yeah. So broadly, the question is that earlier the entire focus was on learning, completion of programs, completion of interventions. How can we now shift this to aligning it to business metrics and ROI from these interventions?
Meghdut, this is an age-old question. And I'm very happy that this question is being asked. My personal experiences on this have been that learning programs delivering value used to be met with a lot of cynicism earlier, because a fundamental questions that business officers would normally ask you would be that, how can one say that a learning intervention has been able to deliver this value or this shift? Because learning alone cannot deliver the shift. So the first point that I would like to put on the table is, as astute professionals, each one of us, we need to be very, very clear in our own mindset that learning is not the be all and end all. It is one of the tools that can help to deliver value to the organization, even in terms of productivity or in terms of reducing attrition. Now, I can give you two use cases from this organization that I'm currently working with. One of the use cases is around a shift that the organizations, one of the businesses in the organization was making a shift from single product to a multi-product approach. And both products were significantly different from each other. Now, if a product is very different, hence skilling and knowledge both have a role to play. Hence, the learning teams worked along with the businesses to define a module, to build the module, and were able to go ahead and deliver these modules with specific regional nuances. There were 12 different designs answering to specific regional nuances which were addressed. Now, we were able to utilize generative AI in helping us to build all of this content. And these programs were delivered not by traditional learning employees or by learning on the learning side, but these modules were delivered by business people. Now, this actually showed a difference in the productivity. So when we pulled out the data at the end of the day, one was able to see that the trained versus the untrained population, there was a significant difference in the percentage of incentive that employees were earning. Now, the approach hence, or the point that I would land here is of the business, for the business, by the business. How is one able to go ahead and do that? Which will a learning head will not have to stand up and say, you know what, here is the impact that has been made. It will be the other way around. The business acknowledges the impact that, you know what, this has been delivered because it was a partnership with business and with learning and with HR, and this is what has been able to deliver. As we move along, it is more a question of ecosystem, different parts of the wheels coming together. It's not only a learning professional, but how is HR stepping in, or HR business partnering stepping in? How is comp and ben stepping in? How is the business vertical stepping in, and so on and so forth. The second example that I can give here is we've been struggling with this. We have a geographically spread audience. Now, how does one cater to? And one of the problems that we understood is that we were unable, our voice is unable to reach the last mile. And I'm sure people who work in large organizations would find this relevant. One of the things that we, diagnosed was we are talking to people only in English. How is one able to create vernacularized content? How is one able to reach the last mile through vernacular in different languages? Now, if these strategies are adopted, is the business which comes back and says, you know what, I find this relevant for me. I find that this helps me improve my productivity and also reduce my attrition. So that's all that I can say on this particular point.
Thank you, Rutinder. So on a different note, over the years, what we have seen is a lot of L&D leaders, HR leaders having spent loads of money on LMS, LXPs. So there's a lot of money getting spent on technology, but every time we go ahead and ask from an adoption perspective, it's never there. Forever, it's either on the wrong side of 50, and we're never reaching what the organization has set out for. So as leaders, as L&D leaders, as HR leaders, what do you think can be done to ensure that we are able to build employee engagement so that there is far more meaningful adoption of some of these technologies, the purpose for which the organization actually invested in them?
See, I completely acknowledge that it is a problem even today. I would be lying if I said that digital adoption is not a problem for any of the large organizations. It is for me as well. However, one of the things that I have realized over a period of time is how do you create a pull rather than a push? Now, any change management essentially would ideally need you to create a push, but how do you go to a pull rather than making it a push? So what we've been able to accomplish, or what we've been able to experiment with, is you can't have a one size fits all. There is value in having multiple bricks. Multiple bricks could be various formats. You could have a classroom format. You could have a virtual instructor led format. You can have LMS also as a brick, which is a format, which is digital content. One of the new bricks that we have ended up adding to our entire framework is that of social. A few years back, a lot of learning management system providers had started experimenting with a sort of an in-house Facebook or a social platform where you can bring employees together. This was being done in 2017 and 18, and there was very low traction for it at that time. What I have realized is maybe this is the right time for it. The second is, how are you able to bring people together with the right kind of format, right kind of content, and the right formats? In my keynote, I spoke about different formats. I don't know how many organizations today or learning departments today are looking at voice as a format. If you go to Spotify, or if you go to Amazon or Alexa, and you ask for a podcast, you've got a lot of takers for it, and there are some significantly great podcasts which are there. How does one leverage voice? How does one leverage videos? And videos have been becoming smaller and smaller and smaller, and micro learning and digital simulations, these are things that seem to be working well. The second is this. The third is the time and the quality of the content. How is one able to come down from 30-minute courses to break it into bite-sized 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, not more than that? And the last one would be, how is one able to do this in vernacular? Because believe me when I say this, employees across the board, not everyone is comfortable in English. So is a learning management platform and your content available in vernacular in different languages? What I have noticed when I look at data within our organization is that when we launch certain courses in Hindi, then we get a spike. When we launch certain courses in Tamil, then we get a spike. So these are certain strategies that I believe can help us. So one size cannot fit all. Personalization is the way to go. Different formats, good content, and vernacular.
Thank you so much, Rutinder, for that. Really appreciate that. I'm sure the audience is benefiting from some of the insights, that you're providing. Just staying on that AI piece and looking at the other side of the paradigm. So obviously, while personalized learning and hyper personalization, and the reams and reams of data that's available, what it also brings forward is something around the entire piece around unbiasedness, and something that you just touched upon, the piece that we constantly look at some of these tools giving us output in English, whereas you've seen spikes when you're looking at the entire piece around vernacular. So one of the things that we recently came up with our L&D report 2025, and one of the things that we saw there in terms of a priority from a skill development perspective for an L&D professional, apart from the top skills like innovation and creative thinking, we saw right at the bottom cybersecurity. And because these were inputs given by L&D professionals, but from your experience and seeing where we are moving today from AI personalization and some of those, and looking at completely solutions driven by AI, Gen AI, and some of those, should cybersecurity be languishing at the bottom, or do you think this should start coming into mainstream as one of the KRAs, the L&D professional, so that they are custodians of responsible outcomes when they actually look at some of these Gen AI tools?
I was recently reading a report, and it said that cybersecurity as a percentage of spend of IT budgets, it has gone up from 1 to 2% to about 20%. Now, that in itself should be able to tell you that it forms 20%. It's 20% of your overall IT budgets are spent on cybersecurity. Now, all of us on the BFSI space, in the BFSI space, we have to be even more careful. with the regulatory environment being significantly tough, and rightly so at this point in time, there is a push even through the regulator for the consumer to be, counseled on the risks of sharing their own data in different places and in different forums. Now, one of the things that we realized this quite early on as an organization is that we, from a learning and development and an HR point of view, we wanted to use a lot of platforms which were available, and we wanted to buy these off the shelf. However, what we realized is that if you buy off the shelf and you will go ahead and put your data in it. Now, this is a lot of proprietary and confidential data also. Learning programs have a lot of proprietary data within it. If you go ahead and feed it to the AI, now this is going to be available across the board for in the open source. So we had to be extremely careful that we did not do this. While we lost some time, however, we found it prudent to align with the organization strategy to say, you know what, there's a key sandbox which will be coming in for Gen AI related work, and a series of initiatives were carved out at the organization level, and sponsorship was brought in from the IT department itself to say, you know what, here is the amount of money which will be spent on the consumer side, here is the amount of money which will be spent on the employee side. Organizations are fundamentally clear at this point in time that IT spends have to be made for both consumers as well as for employees, because a happy employee or a productive employee is the one who's going to be able to add to your profitability as an organization. A lot of organizations are actually sponsoring and spending money on it. In fact, over the last few years, learning budgets have been increased. So these are good signs. These are good signs. Yes, one has to be fundamentally clear about this. Cybersecurity, it's a very niche skill. And I do believe that 20% of the effort and resources should be spent towards cybersecurity and educating people.
Sure. Thank you so much, Rutinder. We have the questions that keep coming in. There's one more from the audience. With digital disruption happening at different paces, at different pace across functions within an organization, how do you create a unified upskilling roadmap without making it one size fits all?
It's a journey. It's Rome is not going to be built in a day. My personal experiences tell me that there are two parts to this story. One is, what is the sponsorship that the organization is willing to give you, and what is the the value proposition that you are able to position as a senior leader within HR or within learning and development to get the kind of sponsorship which is required from the CXOs. That's point number one. Point two is, if you have to eat an elephant, okay, you will have to cut it up in pieces. What has helped me in the past is to be able to take up few POCs, look at businesses, functions, and areas which are more open, more flexible, and willing to experiment with these POCs with them, so that you are able to then show this as a lighthouse across the organization and say, you know what, here is this one business or this one function which has been able to do it, and hence this augments or helps the case for learning and development to take this across as an institutional initiative. So that's what has helped us, and that's what we've experimented with.
Thank you. We have one more. So it's about Bajaj Finserv. So it says in a high performance, fast paced setup like the Bajaj Finserv Limited, how do you balance everyday deliverables with ongoing learning mandates?
Yeah. I had the opportunity to uh, be in a forum in 2020 where I heard the then CEO and even now the CEO of DBS Bank speaking about their transformation journey. One of the lines that he said has stuck with me since then. He said that um, it's like changing a wheel on a moving bus. So BAU and delivering what is required to be done, whether it is bringing in the business, delivering revenues, delivering profitability, all of this is business as usual. Okay. And that's the bus which is moving. At the same time, transformation is you have to change the tire, but you can't stop the bus. It's an ideology and a philosophy. I'm glad to say that this organization fundamentally believes in it, and hence it percolates down to the last mile, where each one of us we cannot take our eyes off the daily hard work and the daily execution rigor. However, at the same time, we work on multiple projects which can help. So we've defined use cases right at the beginning of the year. In December last year, we defined the multiple use cases that HR would pick up as priorities for 2025 and 2026 to be delivered as transformative agendas. Now we look at the right kind of talent across our HR department to say which are the employees who would like to go ahead and become a part of these projects. They continue to deliver their BAU, but at the same time, they are also going and investing and learning in these cross-functional projects and are also delivering to these. So that's what has worked for us as an organization.
So thank you so much. I think the biggest takeaway, Rutinder, is changing wheels in a moving bus. I think that's the key. And how do you ensure? I think that on job training and ensuring that you're able to keep upskilling yourself. I think that will be the key as we move forward. So if you have to just share about 2 lines or 3 lines in terms of what should the final takeaway be for the audience, Rutinder, so what would you like to share?
The best way to predict the future is to skill for it. That's all that I can say. My only shout out to all my friends who are listening to this would be that how am I able to become an early adopter? How am I able to experiment with all that is available in the market? How am I able to define and find out those specific use cases which will be beneficial for the employee and for the organization and for the business? I think if each and everyone starts experimenting with that, the battle is won.
Sure. So content is the king, but contextualization will be the kingmaker. So thank you so much for this extremely meaningful and enlightening session. Rutinder, thank you for taking time out and sharing your thoughts on how will we navigate this digital disruption and how will we practically upskill, and sharing some of the best practices from what you've heard from other leaders and also what you've been able to implement and successfully see application of in Bajaj Finserv Limited. So thank you so much, and it's been a pleasure having you with us for this keynote address, Rutinder, and we look forward to hosting you in the future as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. you.